General, thank you for joining us today. I'm old enough, and I've been in public office long enough to remember justice departments that were indifferent when people's rights were being trampled or denied. And I know I'm old enough to remember justice departments that participated in trampling on people's rights. And so when certain incidents create a situation where some members on the Hill at different venues say that they've lost or in the process of losing confidence in the department, I take those comments very seriously because I remember much difficult days. So just one person saying that I've lost no confidence in your department or in your leadership. In fact, your strongest point you mentioned here today, that when you find something that's not right, you stop it. But that also means that when you find people are having their rights violated, you also get involved in trying to stop it. And it's a complicated world, it's a complicated situation, and I just want to tell you for what it's worth, that in the Bronx we still have great confidence in your ability to be our Attorney General, and we salute you for that. Let me ask you on one of my favorite issues, and one that is, of course, related to you, although it's not part of your testimony today, but you've publicly said that you support the budget and the work of the Legal Services Corporation. And the Legal Services Corporation is not going to get a hearing. I'm not commenting on that. So I just wanted you to take this opportunity to tell us why you support the President's request and how you see the Legal Services Corporation and its the need for us to have it or not to have it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that we have tried to work on in the department, one of the initiatives that we have started is a whole question of adequate representation for people who appear in court or who have legal disputes that somehow need to be resolved. There is, I think, a crisis in this nation when it comes to adequate legal representation, whether you're indigent or whether you are a person of low income. And to the extent that we can, as a federal government, help our fellow citizens have adequate representation in all the things that they have to deal with, whether it's criminal matters, to civil matters, landlord-tenant disputes, custody disputes. It should not be a function of how much money that you have, your access to good lawyers. There is a certain leveling, I think, that we ought to have so that people have access to the greatest judicial system in the world. And that's why I think that LSC, the Legal Services Corporation, is such a vital, vital thing.
Right. And let me tell you that the times that I've been privileged to be ranking member on this committee with both Chairman Rogers and Chairman Wolf, they've always been very supportive. And I can never pass up the opportunity to remind us that it's one of Richard Nixon's great parts of his legacy, that the Legal Services Corporation. Let me just briefly, as a side note, comment on Mr. Honda's extensive work and comments today on that situation in New York. You're going to get a lot of people asking you to get involved. I'm not even commenting on the issue itself. But one of the issues that will come up is the fact that the dollars that were used supposedly were dollars intended to fight drug issues in communities like mine, and they were used for another purpose. So I think you should be aware of the fact that that is going to be asked, and asked very loudly, as to whether that was proper use of those dollars, which don't come out of your department, but directly out of the White House. And so that's an issue, I guess, that's going to come up. Let me ask you another question. One of the issues that has been very strong in New York City has been the increasing protest and concern about the New York City Police Department's so-called stop and frisk policies. Many of these seem to be based solely on the individual's race or ethnicity and done without any reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. I know that several civil rights and civil liberties organizations have brought lawsuits, but can I ask if the Civil Rights Division is currently investigating these practices or whether they intend to do so? Can I also ask if you could get back to us with statistics about the number of complaints the Department of Justice has received about this policy from New York City? And I must tell you that while I believe 85% of the folks that are stopped are African American and Latino, 88% of those are found to have had no reason to be stopped. And I can tell you that personally, it's just, as you may well know, not only unfair practice, but it's also something that troubles you a lot when you're singled out for questioning on the street when you know you've done nothing wrong. And I know that the police department and law enforcement has to fight crime and look for individuals, but I think you said it best when you said that there should be a reason why something is going on, and we think there should be a reason why people are being stopped. And this issue is growing bigger and bigger every day in New York City, and I wanted your comments on it.
Yeah, there have been, I think, an increasing number of concerns raised in that regard. I was speaking actually to Congresswoman Yvette Clarke yesterday at a function, and she raised this very issue with me, and I've asked somebody on my staff to look into what is it that we have going in the department, I guess generally Civil Rights Division specifically. I know Ray Kelly, he's a friend. I'm was born and raised in New York City, born in the Bronx for that matter. I think that we have to, you know, as I said before, we have looked at a variety, I think 18 is the number now, of police departments who have engaged in practices that are inconsistent with the way in which they're supposed to serve the people that they represent. If we find that this is a problem in New York, it is something that we will investigate. It is something at this point that I don't think that we have an open investigation, but it is not something that we're not cognizant of. And so one of the things that I think we're going to be looking at is to see what is the nature of the complaints that we are getting. Can we make some preliminary determination that there is a basis for that, and then on that basis we would take the appropriate action.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, do I have time for another quick question? Very quickly, you know that the Victims' Compensation Fund, the 9/11 Fund, was reopened, legislation was passed, and that was a big debate in Congress, and I think at the end of the day, I know we did the right thing. Just very briefly, do you have a status update regarding the reopened 9/11 Victims' Compensation Fund, and what problems have arisen that had not been foreseen?
Yeah, I mean, as we promised, we got it open. I appointed Sheila Birnbaum as the head of that. It was up as soon as funding became available. As I understand it, I think things are going pretty well. There are questions about at least a couple of things. Will cancers be covered? What we have said, what the special master has said is that she'll follow what HHS makes the determination. If in fact there's a basis for that, that would be included. I've also heard concerns about post-traumatic stress disorder and how that might be affected, how that might be handled. The legislation indicates that their treatment can be received for people who have PTSD, but not necessarily compensation. And so that's something that I think has caused a bit of friction. But as I understand it, on the reports that I have heard, I think the process has started on time with a good piece of legislation, and I think Ms. Birnbaum is doing a pretty good job. As I said, there are at least those two things those two concerns that I've heard.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Oster?
Thank you, Attorney General Holder, for the time you